Hello, everyone. I hope all of you are having a good day today. So I'm back. So this is Allan Javier, and I'm going to share with you my last Ebro webinar at the moment. We don't have any plans for the next few months. So right now, I'm going to share with you about process qualifications and validations now all together for food, the pharmaceutical, and the medical industries. I have to mention to all of you that our host country, which is in Japan, are experiencing some thunderstorms. So there could be some um, connection problems intermittently. So please bear with us. So again, good day to everyone. Today, what to expect in this session, we'll have a quick brush up on the previous webinars and a reintroduction, also very briefly, of all our Ebro products. And I will share with you why it's a very essential tool for audit and regulatory compliance for food, pharma, and medical. And we'll also share with you why Ebro is a good solution for validation requirements. And then we will go into specifics for food applications, pharmaceutical applications, and the medical segment or the medical applications, which is the hospital. And this is where Ebro is very strong at covering all the SOPs and standards in the hospitals. So that's what you will be expecting for this session. And what can we arrange and organize, sorry, but virtually in the coming weeks? Um, we can organize software trainings. It should be separate sessions for the different WinLog software packages. That means the WinLog Pro, WinLog Validation, WinLog Web, and then polish up on our knowledge with important applications for all the industries where Ebro can be introduced as a solution. We can also hold trainings for food processes, those processes where we are very knowledgeable at, whether it's in a retort or autoclave process, in a pasteurizer, smokehouse, smoke ovens, aseptic or UHT processes, and so on and so forth, including the freezing methods. Um, Thermal process for the pharma industry, which is the most important to me when it uh, when we are referring to Ebro solutions. And then also addressing the CSSD requirements, including myself. I think this is a very important opportunity where we should learn more together. The webinars, are only 1 hour sessions, and therefore we only present the most important information about our Ebro solutions. Um, so we need longer time for the above, and we strongly recommend that these are organized separately with interested business partners and customers. Um, if you are interested, we encourage everyone to have their own devices or loggers and the software to make the training more successful. So since this is my last webinar session, I thank all of you, and I wish you well mentally, physically, and I hope you remain in very high spirits. Um, yeah, life goes on, and we should not lose hope that there's better and brighter days ahead. Now I have to again start with um, introducing our company, Xylem. Um, it is a global company So we are actually composed of um, different portfolio, you know, from smart metering, network technologies, advanced analytics solutions, not only for water, energy, and gas utilities, but also for other applications. We are a global team represented across 150 countries, and we have strong, long-standing relationships with customers who know us not only about our products, but also of our dedication and strong focus on developing comprehensive and sustainable solutions. So we represent all market segments from transport, treatment, dewatering, applied water solutions, and of course the measurement and control solutions where sensors, analytics, and the advanced infrastructure analytics belong. So okay, now we go to our main topic. Okay, just a brush up. The first webinar session where we were talking about washer and disinfector and also the sterilization in the medical and hospital industry. And the most important here, I guess, was for you to, we hope you were able to appreciate the process flow um, in the CSSD units in the hospitals. And because knowing this will allow you to identify and determine the opportunities that are presented to you with the Ebro loggers. Like for washer disinfectors, you need not only measure temperature and pressure, but also the conductivity of the water, especially during the rinsing period. So, and most importantly, the sterilization stages. After, this is very important for you to know that you cannot sterilize what is not clean. So it's a sequence in the CSST units of hospitals. So after washer and disinfectors and after inspection, it goes to the pre-sterile storage, which is almost the consummation of the CSST workflow. And that is where sterilization is Ebro very much of a very important use. And so that's the complete cycle. And I hope you remember that. We have recordings from this webinar last 7th of April. Then the second one, we talked about sanitation and disinfection and also the sterilization in relevance to the current situation for um, the necessity of wearing PPEs and FFRs, PPEs being the personal protective equipment, and the FFRs being the face piece, um, filtering respirators. So here we talked about um, N95 mask that can be decontaminated after use um, through the H2O2 or hydrogen peroxide sterilizers, and in some cases, steam sterilizers. So this was the most interesting topic. I receive a lot of questions for this, and I hope you were able to learn from this presentation. And then last week was about the cold chain or the cool chain monitoring, it, covering the important market segments in the hospitals, the pharmacies or drugstores, um, the facilities of a resident doctor, and of course the pharmaceutical and healthcare warehouses. So here we presented the importance of temperature and humidity measurements that needs to be documented. So people or operators are able to capture all the important impacts on their products. So, okay, so that was the previous three presentations that we had. Now we go to, as promised, very brief introduction of the Ebro products. So we have the validation loggers or the hot loggers, as we wrote it in our catalogs, which can be used for food applications, especially in sterilization of canned goods or pouch products that are processed to become shelf stable. Then we have the same solutions for pharmaceutical applications, mainly in the sterilization of pharmaceutical products and devices, and then of course the medical applications. So we will go into details about this. Then also we have the storage mapping applications, and then summarized with our applications for all the equipment that Ebro is producing and supplying to the industry. So that's covering the food and beverage, the medical and the pharmaceutical, and also the industrial. We have very good references in the industrial. Now, why is Ebro such an important product for qualifications and validations? This is what we are talking about. We will try to present to you the very backbone of this kind of instrumentation when referring to the food, pharmaceutical, and medical market segments. So this is what we call the Ebro approach. So please note that these products will be used in our presentation for different applications. Okay, what is qualification and validation? So this is relatively the same in food, pharmaceutical, and medical, only that the guidelines and the norms are very specific for these different industries. So what is IQ, or the installation qualification? It is a performance of documenting and verifying that an equipment and processes adheres to approved contract specifications and achieves design criteria. So this is all about dealing with compliance for with technical specification standards, codes, and regulations. Now we go to the next cycle, which is the OQ, or operational qualification, which is a documented verification that an equipment or process is according to the criteria over all defined operating ranges. So this is the kind of stage where we document all the um, evidence that an equipment is capable of repeated operation for the same objective. Now we go to the PQ, which is what we typically call validation. And well, it's the same documentation and verification that equipment or processes operate the way they are purported to function. Um, so in our kind of business, um, the critical parameters is always temperature, pressure, conductivity, humidity. So this is the core, the very core of the different processes in pharmaceutical and medical, and also in food. In order for you to appreciate it further, um, these are the different markets and companies where this qualification requirements applies. Um, this slide is actually from Ebro in Germany. So they have very good relationship with Miele for the washer disinfectors, um, and also with other food manufacturers and cold food chains such as McDonald's and KFC for the food oil monitors. But these measurements and tests are performed because these are according to their SOPs and also because of the compliance. So again, what is qualification and validation? Whether it is published and defined from the US FDA or further from Europe, it's actually referring to the same objectives. And that's providing and documenting that everything is performed and done in accordance with the principles of good manufacturing practice. And everything is producing a consistent result for all the products and meeting their predetermined specifications and quality attributes. So this is how it goes. We start with RCL or URS. RCL, which stands for Requirement Classification, and the URS, which stands for User Requirement Specification. So both the medical and the pharmaceutical industries has this. Okay, not really in the food, but unknowingly it's the same. It's the same. They organize their own requirements in the food. But RCL and URS are um, enumerations of such step necessary in the pharmaceutical and medical. Then after the RCL and URS, you go to the functional specifications, how a process or how an equipment is supposed to function. Then you go to the design specifications. Okay, so now that you have established your requirement and you know what the functionality should be, then you make your design specifications. So it could cover all um, the provisions that was written in the functional specifications. So after the design specifications, now you go to system build or the system itself. This is now referring to an equipment. It could be a software or it could be the process itself. So these three, RCL, FS, and DS, are necessary to build a system, which therefore needs to be qualified by installation qualification and by operational qualification. Now we pause here for a while. Operational qualification, the purpose of this is to verify everything in the functional specifications and also to verify everything in the design specifications. Now you cannot move further without a successful verification of this qualification stage. And that's when you are successful, then that's the only way you can proceed to PQ. So performance qualification now verifies everything that was written in your RCL and URS. So this is actually how validation is supposed to be understood. Okay, so you can say Ebro is all about the products. It doesn't stop there. The products, the loggers, and the software needs to be undergoing the same qualification stages as well, so they can comply. So your understanding and knowledge about this very important um, illustration to make you understand the qualification and validation is therefore very, very important. Okay, so the flow should be you make a plan and you go to the specification and then you do all the testing with the IQ and OQ and of course the PQ, which is supposed to be performed with the customer or with the end user. So after all these tests are performed and results were collected, then you go to the review and then you result to a report generation that will present everything about all those sequences and cycles and stages. Okay, so I hope you understood that one. And now we go to the different segments. We start with the food industry. So when you say validation is the action of providing in accordance with principles of GMP that any procedure, process, equipment, activity, or system actually leads to the expected results. And the expected results, and this is very important in the food industry, and this is the bottom line. The expected results is for you to be able to present there is a microbial inactivation and your microbial inactivation is adequate. Okay, so you are supposed to produce commercially sterile products, whether they are packed, canned, or in bottles, and they are properly handled and stored, and addressing all those heat-resistant microorganisms and how they behave in a specific type of food product. But in the food industry, this is the one that is very different with the medical and the pharmaceutical. The good quality is the most important. It is the most important, but not compromising on safety. So number one, the microbial inactivation is referring to safety. Number two is good quality. And this is a reason why in the food industry, we have this what we call thermal process schedules. And these thermal process schedules are very necessary so you are not overcooking your food products. Okay, so we have all the solutions for this with the EBI 11 and EBI 12, and it will be able to provide you both number one, the microbial inactivation as represented by the FO value or the PU value or PO value, and also CO value or EO value, name it. You can do everything with a WinLog Pro and WinLog validation um, to indicate microbial destruction or microbial inactivation. Then good quality is, of course, you can follow the trend, and when you are able to reach the correct FO value in the process, then you can already establish your own process and prevent overcooking of your products. So it's very important for food industry to follow three important stages, especially when dealing with packed foods. First is by measuring the vacuum, um, especially after seaming or sealing the canned product. And number two, taking a record of the initial and final temperatures of the food products. So this is the only way you can establish a very good thermal process schedule when you are able to establish the correct IT of a product. Okay, so then of course the post-process initial temperatures of the product after retorting, for example, or after pasteurizing, they are also very important. And so that's the reason why we have the same data loggers, the handhelds that can help you monitor the initial food products, pre-process and post-process. And then the EBI 11 and EBI 12 logger series for continuous measurement from heat treatment to cooling, or if freezing is required, then it can um, be used also for measurements. So in the food industry, it is almost similar to the pharmaceutical, except that in the food industry, the autoclaves are called retorts. But it's the same. It's also an autoclave. It's a big vessel that are used for sterilization programs and cycles. So this is typically used for canned products and pouched products, and also bottled products. It could be stationary. steam still stationary, it could be a water immersion type, or it could be a continuous steam cooker cooler um, sterilizer. So retorting sterilization or the sterilization by retort is not only for establishing a product at the thermal process schedules for a product, but also for routine monitoring. And what is very important here is the FO value um, that you are providing your products using a particular process schedule. It's also used for R&D purposes, and it's of course to ensure that they are not undercooked and overcooked. So these are very important examples that you can actually promote to your customers, that it is very important that they measure their processes using parametric techniques. Okay, so the solution here is a good one is using the EBI 11, but we strongly recommend the EBI 12s. They are more flexible, and they can also be used with um, data transmission um, by radio frequency. And typically, this heat distribution test or HDT, including the heat penetration test, which is called the HPT, in retort processes, typically the people were using thermocouple wires. So that's very tedious procedure because you have to introduce the thermocouple wires from outside the vessel to inside the vessel. And then you have to actually go inside the vessel to position the measuring points correctly. But with a wireless logger such as the EBI 11s and EBI 12s, you are given a more flexibility, and um, you are of course, getting the tendency to place the measuring points in their correct locations much more easier. So this is, of course, the convenience and the correctness of performing heat penetration tests and heat distribution tests in a continuous cooker cooler system. Um, So this is actually a kind of retort system where cans are rolling from inside for pre-cooking, and then by a continuous mode transferred to the cooker, which is the sterilizer, and again by continuous mode transferred to the cooler to cool down the product. And there's no other better solution than the small EBI 11 from Ebro. Okay, so that's the retort processes, but other than the retort processes, there are too many um, different kinds of thermal processing methods in the food industry. They have a batch pasteurizers, where we have a very good success, especially in water bath pasteurizers using water tanks. Um, these are also, we have also good references in a continuous pasteurizer system, which is like a tunnel, and it's like a conveyor system where the cans or pouches or plastic cups, whatever the packaging is, are automatically introduced to the pasteurizer tunnel and by water. And the other convenience of using the EBI 11 and EBI 12 is that you can just place the sensor in the packaging and just leave it there continuously monitoring. In this example, um, measuring from the filling of the products in the cups and then chilling them. before process, and then the logger continues to measure when they are placed in the pasteurizer and continues to measure after they are being brought to the chillers. So that's an example for pasteurizers and retorts. But the Ebro solutions can also be very good proposals for handling hot fill process methods. And this is what I want to explain to you or teach you in detail if you are interested. It can also be used for aseptic processes and very effectively used for sous vide processes, which is a cook chill thermal process method. And of course, um, we have very good solutions suitable for different freezing methods for food preservation. The individually quick freezing, the blast freezing, ethanol freezing, name it. We have all the solutions for all these kinds of freezing methods. But most importantly is again, the data is just the data, so you need to evaluate them. In the case of the food applications and food processes, the most important is the temperature, how the products are being held in the sterilization or hold temperatures, and then produce the necessary lethality values as represented by the FO or F sub O values or F sub naught values. I received a question about this before. Then the pasteurization values, P sub O, P sub 0, the cooking values, and so on and so forth. So it is very important that you have a software that is able to generate these kind of calculations and of course give you an indication of your distribution test in your processing equipment by generating statistics reports. So in food, it's all about microorganisms. So we'll be stopping here, okay? So that's our solutions for the food industry. Um, but then again, you have to understand each of those processing methods that I have mentioned. Okay, so we can talk about them um, in the next few days to come if you are interested. All right. Now we go to the pharmaceutical and medical. Due to time constraints, I have to mix this all up together, the pharmaceutical and medical, because the most important here is actually only two things, how to clean and how to sterilize. So unlike the food, the norms in the pharmaceutical and medical are more stricter, but they are also more specific. So in medical applications, we have the Medicines Act and all those norms from FDA and from EU. Um, that of course includes the most important in all the products and softwares and instrumentations, which is the FDA 21 CFR Part 11 and also the CFR 210 and 211. So these are all the compliance things that we have to be very aware of. So in the European Pharmacopoeia, Ebro has not missed a detail addressing this to our software and to our instrumentation. So not really explaining in detail, but as I have said that they are more specific in the pharma and medical, you can see even for large steam sterilizers and small steam sterilizers, there are specific norms to address this and produce the guidelines for this. Well, what I really like, of course, is the ISO 17665. It's very clear. The procedures are also very clear, and the objectives are well presented. So but then again, we have different kind of sterilizers. Excuse me. We have talked about um, H2O2 for PPEs and FFRs or the mask, Uh, hydrogen peroxide, you have to review this one because not we don't have too many competitions to measuring very low pressure in a condition of a vacuum. So to summarize, the pharmaceutical and medical are founded and they are guided by different and specific norms. For steam sterilization, we have the EN ISO 17665. For ethylene oxide sterilization, we have the ISO 11135. And for the hydrogen peroxide sterilization, this is quite new, which is the ISO 14937, 14937. And in pharmaceutical, they are also guided by norms with oven verification and incubator verification because these processes are also very critical in the pharmaceutical processing industry. So validation, therefore, is all those phases and that must be performed according to the documented procedures. So it's actually comprising with all those um, qualification stages, the IQ, OQ, and PQ. But maybe we can put it in a way that, for Ebro, we are specifically dealing with process validations, and that's the process and the instrument. Okay, so when you say sterilization, then it's about the autoclave and about the sterilization process. So you have to remember this. Okay, so process validation is therefore the analysis of data. Okay, the analysis of data gathered throughout your procedures, throughout all those procedures that we have talked about. So accuracy, therefore, of the products um, are very critical to making these validation procedures successful. Please bear that in mind. So it's not just using a simple thermocouple or a simple temperature thermometer, because all this data must be analyzed thoroughly and according to the design and also the manufacturing of a product that you produce, and confirm that the process can reliably output products of a determined standard. So that's actually what validation is all about. In pharma and medical, the critical um, process is the sterilization process, because this is where everything is made safe. Okay, disinfection and cleaning is also important, but the penultimate of a pharmaceutical process is in the sterilization process. And this is always the case. So whether it's in medical, where you are also trying to capture and establish the correct microbial reduction of your autoclaving process or your sterilization process, but also in the pharmaceutical where um, your only objective is to eliminate all those microorganisms um, in your products. So in a pharmaceutical company, you can find different kinds of sterilizers, and when you see one, we all have a solution from Ebro to properly validate all these kind of sterilizers, whether it's a steam sterilizer, hot air sterilizer, ethylene oxide, hydrogen peroxide, or formaldehyde. Now we go to the steam sterilization reports. Since we are trying to address and verify a process, then we must produce a document that will present all these procedures and tests and results. And that's one reason why knowing about WinLog validation is not enough. You have to be experts um, of these softwares in a manner of you are really maximizing and optimizing all the functionalities in this software package, because all these functionalities um, are according to all these procedures and guidelines that we have talked about in the earlier slides. So it's not only the past that we want to see, we also want to see a fail result, because we want to know how an equipment or a process is actually performing. Um, so we need all these correct measurements, but all this data must be also properly presented in a form of a report and document. So thank you very much for your time. When we have time to look into the softwares, and when you are interested, just let us know. So thank you very much. Michael?
Allan, thank you very much for that presentation. That's 4 in a row. You're definitely a pro now at GoToWebinar, and we really appreciate the time you've taken to share your knowledge with us. To all the attendees, I'd like to invite you now at this point to feel free to ask Allan any questions you might have. There is a chat question box on your interface that you simply type in the question, and we'll go through them one by one. And while we wait for the questions to come through, just a reminder that there will be a follow-up email coming or generated directly out of GoToWebinar that will be coming to you in about an hour or 2 hours from now, which will include a link to the recording, as well as a certificate for all of the attendees with your name on it, if you might happen to need one for your company to prove that you actually attended. All right, Allan, it looks like we do have some questions coming through here.
I'm here.
All right, again, a very popular question is, can we get a copy of this presentation?
Of course.
So Allan, I believe that we'll make a PDF of this presentation and share with those who do request it. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, sure. There are still some questions that I have not answered, but be assured that I will answer them in the next coming days.
Sure,
I'll send
that's
you the
fine.
copy of the presentations.
Thank you. All right, we do have a couple of questions that have come in for you, Allan. The first one is, how often does a company need to validate within the food and pharma medical industries? Is there a standard?
Um, in the food and pharmaceutical, one thing is the same. If people have done any adjustments in an instrument or have changed something like an important accessory in an autoclave or in a processing equipment, then they need to validate that. That's one thing common with food and the pharmaceutical. Um, in in the food industry, they have annual um, requirement for heat distribution tests and heat penetration tests. But in the pharmaceutical, this industry is crazy with audits. They get audits from like every month or sometimes every 3 months. So it's really according to how the demand of performing all these validations in the pharmaceutical. But in the medical, routine monitoring is just scheduled regular routine monitoring, but they also need revalidations of all their processing equipment, and they write that in their SOP. Some do it semi-annually and some do it annually.
Okay. Thanks, Alan. And this is Rumiko. I'll be assisting you with a question. Alan, which software is the best for the food market and for the pharmaceutical market?
Um, Thank you, Rumiko. That's Rumiko, ladies and gentlemen. Um, the software, I will not recommend the WinLog Pro or the WinLog Validation because it's really according to your application. When it's a simple application such as thermal mapping, then you don't need WinLog validation. Um, for critical processes in the pharmaceutical, especially the um, sterilizations cycles and validation of sterilizers and their processes involving use of autoclaves, then I highly recommend the WinLog validation. WinLog Pro can be used and it's very flexible, but then again, it doesn't have all the functionalities for the WinLog validation. It's, let's talk about this. Um, Tell me, tell us your requirements, and we will recommend to you the kind of software package that you need. I hope that sounds fair, and I hope that makes sense. Thank you, Rumiko.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, next question. Our product is frozen meat. How can we ensure the products are safe and within the standard if we do not use the blast freezer for freezing?
Um, can you repeat the first few
Yes, okay. So our products are frozen meat.
frozen
How
meat?
can,
Okay,
yes, frozen meat. Mhm.
okay, go ahead, please.
Okay. How
Um,
can we ensure the product are safe and within the standard if we do not use blast freezer for freezing?
um, Meat processing. Like for example in slaughterhouses, um, almost a permanent fixture in these slaughterhouses is the blast freezers, because it preserves the meat. It makes the meat, whether it's whatever types of meat, fresh. So that's the only kind of um, freezing method that keeps a meat product fresh. Before distribution, it has to be like a block of ice, and its internal temperature must be reaching -10 to -30 degrees Celsius. So when it's just normal freezing, it will be possible, but it will take you a very, very long time to produce an internal temperature in a meat carcass, for example, a big carcass, -10 degrees Celsius. So, yeah, I think blast freezing is the most important freezing method for meat products. Thanks,
Okay,
Rumiko.
Alan. Yeah, okay, Alan. Just to confirm, he was asking this question about sausages in particular. So would the same apply for sausages?
Sure, sure. Sausages, whether it's hot dogs or sausages, you smoke it, right? You put it in a smoking oven, and then you have to chill them. But the important part after the process, I mean, the cooking process, is to vacuum pack the sausages. If it's not vacuum packed, then it is very necessary to um, blast freeze it. If it's vacuum packed, um, blast freezing is still important, but it can be used as an option, but it is the best option. So for hot dogs or sausages, from smoking oven to chilling, it must be kept frozen before distribution. So okay, in that case, if it's sausages, then it may not be using blast freezing, just freezing, but it should be frozen um, before distribution to the market chain.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Moving on to the next question. Can F1 value be calculated at the time of autoclave validation? If yes, then please inform which model logger and which software in Ebro is suitable for this application.
The Weedlog Pro, okay, but the loggers, when they are used in retort processes, for example, for food, um, if the mode of measurement is not real time, then they can get both the temperature readings and the F sub O calculation readings at the same time, but after the process. Okay, so we have several solutions for this. I have to consult Ebro again on the EBI 40, for example, for our wire-based solution. And for the EBI 12s and EBI 11s, EBI 12s, definitely you can measure FO value during the process by radio mode. But the EBI 11, the small EBI loggers, the FO value can only be generated after the process. I am not going to recommend any because the EBI 11, being the smallest logger in the Ebro family, is also very good for um, heat penetration measurements in a bottle, for example, and maybe inside a small can. So it's actually, again, depending on the type of application and the type of packaging um, that the customer has. Yeah, FO value is definitely generated automatically.
Okay, thank you, Alan. We've got a couple more questions here. Our food products will be exported to Europe. What is the monitoring procedure?
Um, Food products that are going to be exported to Europe. Um, I hope you have made some specific remark on what kind of product you are exporting to Europe. If it's a thermally processed product like canned goods, then all you need to apply is to file submissions to the FDA and get an approval. But if it's a meat, fresh meat, then um, during process, yeah, you have to monitor the temperature, of course, during the transport. But again, Rumiko, that's kind of difficult to answer because I don't know what kind of product they are going to export and from what country they are coming from.
No problem, Alan. I guess we can take it outside after the webinar and
Yeah,
deal with
sure.
the question
Yeah.
separately. We've got 2 more minutes and just one final question for you.
Oh no.
Okay, do you have products applicable to determine F values for food processed by aseptic processing, for example, juice?
Oh, you know the Ebro products. Um, the reference values can be changed, so it can be made very specific for different kinds of thermal processes in the food. For example, when you are dealing with autoclave sterilization for low acid food, then your temperature reference should be 121.11 degrees Celsius with a Z value of 10. But when you're doing pasteurization, then you can use different kind of temperature reference according to the microorganisms that you are targeting. But for milk, for example, then you use a Z value of 33.3 and a temperature reference of 100. Now, when you go to aseptic, that's a high temperature process. like for example 134 degrees Celsius or 140 degrees Celsius, but the holding time is so short, okay, like just seconds or just maybe a minute. So you can measure this by um, making derivations of all this formula. But then again, I would refer you to the same formula in the FO value for food products. If you are dealing with low acid foods and processing it via UHT or aseptic, then the TREF can be for low acid products, for aseptic, and so on and so forth. If it's juice, then it could be a lot more less critical. If it's an acidified kind of juice or high acid juice, then yeah, it can be done. We just have to um, input the correct temperature reference in the formula. It can be done in any processes in the food. I hope I can discuss this with you further because I think this is one of those processing methods that I'm really in love with, the aseptic processes. And I hope you send me an email. We can talk more about this. Thanks, Rumiko.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you so much for answering all these questions. I think we're about to close the webinar, the final of the 4 series. So thank you, Alan, again. And if you have any final words for the audience.
Well, oh yeah, I'm going to miss this. It's been like starting from the 7th of April to now, but we have better things to do. I hope the learning does not stop here. It's not all about the Ebro products. Um, when when I talk to my business partners in the region and go to a pharmaceutical company, and I bring with me all the solutions that Xylem can bring, that Xylem Analytics can bring, talk to the customers, and the only way you can talk with them is to know more about their processes. So it's not just the Ebro product, it's your knowledge about making use of this knowledge, so you are not just getting to the door, but also getting through the door. Okay, so it's been a pleasure, Rumiko and Michael, working with you guys, and yeah, I hope we can have more sessions similar to this. Try to consider the more extensive trainings for the software and the different trainings that I proposed. Thanks to everyone.
Thank you, Alan, so much for the amazing series of webinars. Thank you, audience, for attending these webinars. It's been a pleasure to have you all. If you have any questions, please reach out to Alan or marketing at info.apac@exalamink.com. Anyway, thank you so much. Goodbye.
Thanks, Rumiko.
Thank you.
Arrivederci.